Have you ever wondered how World War II, one of the most devastating events in human history, began? A question that has intrigued scholars, historians, and curious minds alike. This colossal conflict, a dark civilization, didn't just appear out of thin air. No, there were causes, there were triggers, and there were key players. In the next 15 minutes, we'll embark on a journey through time, threading together the complex tapestry of events that led to the outbreak of World War II. We'll examine the seeds of war, explore Hitler's rise to power, and witness the cataclysmic outbreak that changed the world forever. We'll delve into the major battles, the turning points, and finally, the war's chilling aftermath. So, are you ready to unravel the intricacies of this world-altering event? Let's delve into the events that led to the outbreak of this catastrophic war. The seeds of World War II were sown in the aftermath of World War I. To understand this, we need to look back at the Treaty of Versailles, signed in June of 1919, marking the formal end of the Great War. This treaty was meant to ensure peace in Europe, but it did quite the opposite. The main focus was to punish Germany, the perceived instigator of the war. The terms were harsh. Germany lost a significant amount of territory and was forced to disarm. It was also required to pay reparations, essentially a financial compensation for all the damage caused during the war. These reparations were crippling. In the years that followed, Germany faced astronomical hyperinflation. Money became worthless, savings were wiped out. The German economy was in tatters and the people were in despair. And in this climate of economic hardship and resentment, a certain Adolf Hitler saw an opportunity. Hitler and his National Socialist German Workers' Party, better known as the Nazi Party, capitalized on the national discontent. They promised to restore Germany to its former glory, to tear up the Treaty of Versailles, and to make Germany great again. Hitler's charisma and powerful rhetoric resonated with the people, and his message of national pride and anti-Semitism found a receptive audience. The Nazis' rise to power was gradual but unstoppable. By the early 30s, they were the largest party in the German parliament. Hitler was appointed chancellor in 1933, and within a year, he had consolidated his power and declared himself Führer, the absolute leader of Germany. The harsh conditions of the Treaty of Versailles, the economic hardship, and the rise of the Nazi Party were all interlinked. The seeds of resentment sown by the treaty had sprouted into a dangerous ideology, one that would plunge the world into another devastating war. Thus, the stage was set for a conflict on a scale the world had never seen before. In the heart of this brewing storm, a new leader emerged in Germany. His name was Adolf Hitler, and his rise to power was as meteoric as it was chilling. This man, who would become a symbol of tyranny and oppression, began his political journey amidst the economic turmoil and social unrest that plagued Germany following the Great War. Hitler, a charismatic and captivating speaker, tapped into the widespread discontent and resentment felt by many Germans. He promised a return to prosperity and national pride, a message that resonated deeply with those desperate for change. But his vision for Germany was tainted by a dangerous ideology, one that championed racial purity, authoritarianism, and militarism. In 1933, Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany. He quickly consolidated his power, transforming the democratic Weimar Republic into the totalitarian Third Reich. The world watched as Hitler systematically dismantled the constraints placed on Germany by the Treaty of Versailles, the peace agreement that had ended the First World War but had left Germany feeling humiliated and oppressed. Key events marked Hitler's aggressive foreign policies. In 1936, he boldly remilitarized the Rhineland, a region demilitarized by the Treaty of Versailles. This move was a clear violation of the treaty, but the international community did little more than wag a disapproving finger. Then, in early 1938, Hitler orchestrated the Anschluss, the annexation of Austria. This act was followed by the Sudetenland crisis later that year, when Hitler demanded that the Sudetenland, a region of Czechoslovakia inhabited by ethnic Germans, be ceded to Germany. Despite protests from Czechoslovakia, Hitler's demands were eventually met in the notorious Munich Agreement. Each defiant act emboldened Hitler further. He saw the lack of decisive action from other nations not as caution, but as weakness. And he exploited that perceived weakness, pushing his aggressive policies further and further. As Hitler continued to defy the Treaty of Versailles, tensions escalated, pushing the world closer to war. The stage was set for one of the darkest chapters in human history, a chapter that would be written in blood and shaped by the ambitions of a single man. The fuse was lit, and on September 1st, 1939, World War II began. The world watched in collective horror as Germany, led by the ruthless Adolf Hitler, launched an unprovoked invasion of Poland. This marked the beginning of a new era in warfare, an era defined by a strategy known as blitzkrieg, or lightning war. Blitzkrieg was a military doctrine of fast, concentrated attacks aimed at catching the enemy off guard, a doctrine that would become a signature of German aggression in the early years of the war. The idea was simple: strike swiftly, strike brutally, and keep the enemy on their back foot. And in Poland, that's exactly what the Germans did. The invasion was swift and brutal. Germany's mechanized forces, supported by waves of devastating airstrikes, tore through the Polish defenses. The Polish army, ill-prepared for such a sudden and overwhelming assault, was quickly overrun. By October 6th, just a little over a month after the invasion began, Poland had fallen. The world watched in stunned silence as Poland crumbled. The silence, however, was short-lived. Britain and France, having signed mutual defense pacts with Poland, were obligated to respond. And respond they did. On September 3rd, just 2 days after the invasion of Poland began, Britain and France declared war on Germany. The era of appeasement was over. The world was at war. But this was not just any war. This was a war that would span 6 continents, involve more than 30 nations, and last for 6 long, bloody years. It was a war that would see atrocities on a scale never before witnessed. A war that would redefine the very concept of humanity. It was a war that would change the world forever. The world was now engulfed in a war that would redefine history. From the smoking ruins of Poland to the bombed-out cities of Britain, from the frozen steppes of Russia to the sun-scorched deserts of North Africa, the world was about to witness a conflict like no other. World War II was marked by numerous pivotal battles and turning points. Let's journey back to the summer of 1940, where Britain stood alone against the might of the German Luftwaffe. This period marked the Battle of Britain, the first major battle to be fought entirely by air forces. The German objective was clear: achieve air superiority over the Royal Air Force to pave the way for a ground invasion. But the Brits, they were made of sterner stuff. The Royal Air Force, though outnumbered, defended their skies relentlessly, demonstrating to the world that the German war machine was not unbeatable. This victory became a beacon of hope for the Allied forces and a turning point in the war. Moving eastwards, we come to the vast expanse of the Soviet Union and the commencement of Operation Barbarossa in June 1941. This was Hitler's audacious plan to conquer the Soviet Union, the largest invasion in the history of warfare. The Germans initially made swift progress, capturing vast territories and millions of Soviet soldiers. However, the harsh Russian winter and the fierce Soviet resistance halted their advance. The failure of Operation Barbarossa marked a significant turning point, as it was the first major defeat for the Germans, and it stretched their resources thin on the Eastern Front. Now, let's traverse the globe to the Pacific, to the morning of December 7th, 1941. The Pearl Harbor attack by the Japanese was a defining moment in the war. This surprise military strike on the United States naval base in Hawaii led to America's entry into the war. The attack was intended to prevent the U.S. Pacific Fleet from interfering with Japan's planned military actions in Southeast Asia against the territories of the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and the United States. But it had the opposite effect, uniting a previously divided America and bringing the full weight of its industrial might into the war. In the winter of 1942, we returned to the Eastern Front for the Battle of Stalingrad. This brutal face-off between the Axis and Soviet forces became one of the deadliest battles in human history. It was a battle of attrition, marked by close-quarters combat and direct assaults on civilians by air raids. The Soviets, however, managed to encircle and trap the German Sixth Army, forcing them to surrender in early 1943. The Battle of Stalingrad was a devastating blow to Germany's morale and marked a turning point in the Eastern Front. Finally, let's journey to the beaches of Normandy for D-Day, June 6, 1944. This was the largest seaborne invasion in history, orchestrated by the Allied forces to liberate Western Europe from Nazi control. Under the codename Operation Overlord, thousands of troops stormed the beaches of Normandy, facing heavy German resistance. Despite the immense challenges, the Allies secured a foothold in Normandy, marking the beginning of the end for the Axis powers in Western Europe. Each of these battles and events were turning points in their own right, altering the course of the war dramatically. They showcased the resilience, determination, and courage of the nations involved. The Battle of Britain demonstrated that the German advance could be halted. Operation Barbarossa exposed the limits of the German war machine. The Pearl Harbor attack brought the United States, a global powerhouse, into the war. The Battle of Stalingrad turned the tide on the Eastern Front, while D-Day marked the start of the liberation of Western Europe. Each of these battles played a crucial role in the ultimate outcome of the war. As the war reached its final days, the world held its breath. The tide of war had turned, and the end was in sight. The fall of Berlin was a pivotal moment that marked the beginning of the end. With Soviet forces closing in, the once invincible Third Reich was on its knees. Adolf Hitler, the man who had led Germany into this devastating conflict, met his end in a bunker, his grand vision of a 1,000-year Reich crumbling around him. Yet even as Europe breathed a sigh of relief, the war was far from over in the Pacific. The United States, seeking a swift end to the conflict, made the fateful decision to drop atomic bombs on the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The world watched in stunned silence as these cities were reduced to rubble, the human cost of this new weapon of mass destruction unimaginable. Japan, faced with utter devastation, announced its surrender shortly thereafter. In the wake of the war's end, the world was forever changed. The United Nations was established in a bid to prevent such a catastrophic conflict from ever happening again. This global body aimed to foster international cooperation and to promote peace and security. But as the dust settled, a new conflict was brewing, the Cold War. Former allies, the United States and the Soviet Union, found themselves locked in a tense power struggle that would shape the geopolitical landscape for the next 4 decades. World War II had ended, but its impact would be felt for decades to come. The echoes of its battles still reverberate through our history, a stark reminder of the cost of war and the importance of peace. This conflict, which had once engulfed the world in flames, served as a catalyst for change, reshaping our world in ways that still resonate today. World War II was a cataclysmic event that profoundly shaped the course of the 20th century. It was a conflict of unparalleled magnitude, born from the seeds of resentment and the rise of a dictator, Adolf Hitler. It consumed nations and people in its fiery embrace, altering lives and landscapes beyond recognition. We've explored the outbreak of war, a time of turmoil and uncertainty where diplomacy failed and the world was cast into the chaos of conflict. We delved into the major battles and turning points, moments where tides turned and the course of history was irrevocably changed. The final days and the aftermath of this global conflict left a world in ruins. Yet from those ashes, a new world order emerged. As we reflect on the lessons of this dark period in history, we are reminded of the cost of war and the importance of striving for peace.
If you find this information interesting and valuable, please don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell to stay updated with our latest content.